All right. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. It is 12 o'clock, and we are going to get started. So my name is Allegra Elson. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve as Director of Training and Development with Vibrant Pittsburgh. I'll be your host and moderator for today's session, Unlocking Global Talent Strategies for Success. We are joined by my colleague Matthew Yohe, Programs and Services Manager. He'll manage the Q&A and also add to our discussion. You will meet our panelists in just a moment. Vibrant Pittsburgh is a premier economic development membership organization dedicated to supporting the growth and economic competitiveness of Pittsburgh as the region's central resource, spokesperson, and convener on workplace inclusion and belonging. Vibrant Pittsburgh envisions a future where Pittsburgh employers offer inclusive workplaces that foster prosperity and belonging, making them a top choice for people of all backgrounds. Vibrant Pittsburgh is also very pleased to partner with the City of Pittsburgh's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs on this series. I'm pleased that we have Michelle King, Policy Coordinator with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, and she would also like to welcome you to today's call. Michelle King.
Thank you, Allegra. Yeah, on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh and Mayor Gainey's office, I just want to welcome all of you for taking your time to come to this webinar today to hear from our panelists. We know that global talent fills labor gaps across sectors, helping to preserve and create jobs. We also know that immigrants contribute to economic expansion and not displacement because population contraction, when our city gets smaller, it hurts all of us. It hurts our economy in a number of ways and includes job destruction. And so for our employers, we know that attracting and retaining talent is important. And so we're excited to bring this very talented group of panelists with a lot of knowledge to share some of the resources and tools available to you today. And so I just want to thank the panelists for their time and thank Vibrant Pittsburgh for helping to host this time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So as we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Our session today is being recorded and will be made available on Vibrant Pittsburgh's YouTube channel. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A. We have 90 minutes together, so we expect to get your questions before the close of today's session. If we don't, we will endeavor to answer them. There will also be a follow-up email to all registrants with resources that we talk about today. So please take a moment to say hello and introduce yourself in the chat. We will be closing the chat once our discussion starts, but take this moment now just to say hello to everybody in the room and give us a quick introduction. So in Pittsburgh, in southwestern Pennsylvania, across the state of Pennsylvania and the United States, there are communities of immigrants and refugees seeking employment and also hoping to grow and advance in their jobs and careers here. Today's session, the third in a series that we've partnered with the city, will explore practical ways employers can attract, retain, elevate, and support immigrant and refugee employees. By adopting inclusive practices and providing appropriate resources, businesses can cultivate a workplace where all employees feel valued, supported, and empowered to contribute their best work. So in a moment, we're going to launch a 3-question pop quiz. Okay, we might not have been expecting a pop quiz, but we're going to do it. And it's about immigrants and refugees in the region. So Matthew, if you could open that quiz for everyone, and as folks are looking at the quiz and answering the questions, I'm going to take you through just a few stats as you think about those. So Pennsylvania is home to a very large immigrant population. About 7.9% of the state's residents are foreign-born, and about 3.6% of its U.S.-born residents live with at least one immigrant parent. Immigrants make up 9.7% of Pennsylvania's labor force and support the state's economy in many ways. They account for 12.5% of entrepreneurs, 17.2% of STEM workers, and 16.2% of health aides in the state. So I wanted to give you just a few of those statistics, and in our follow-up email, we'll be giving you much lengthier resources for you to take a look at. So I'm going to give you about 15 more seconds to answer the quiz, and then we will, in fact, reveal those answers to the quiz. So I'm going to do 15 seconds from now. Right. So I'm going to double check with Matthew if we, sorry everyone, if we close the quiz, will it then give everyone the answers? Are we able to do that? I minimized
Yes.
my quiz and I don't see it, so.
No problem. I will close the poll out now. Looks like we have about 50% of our participants who responded to it, and I will share the results.
All right. Okay. Number one, according to the American Immigration Council, immigrants in Pennsylvania have an annual spending power of, and the correct answer is 30 billion. Okay, 30 billion. Although immigrants made up 9% of the city's population, they represented a larger portion of the workforce in 2019. And yes, most of you got that. That answer is true there. And lastly, refugees living in the United States make contributions to our economy as earners, taxpayers, and consumers. What is the employment rate of likely refugees? And our answer there is 97%. We find that refugees are employed at an extremely high rate across the state of Pennsylvania. Okay. So, and also just as a reminder, we are discussing those immigrants and refugees who are legally authorized to work in the United States, and that's who we are focusing on today. So, Dan, thank you so much for your introductions in the chat. We'll be leaving the chat open just for a few more moments as we introduce our panelists coming up. So, with our panelists today, we'll be exploring 3 different areas. Number 1, supporting workplace language skills and development. Number 2, cultural competency and inclusion. And number 3, talking about employer success stories and what really works for employers who are employing immigrants and refugees. So I'd like to take a very brief moment to welcome our panelists with us today. We have Leslie Detrani with Pathway for Immigrant Workers, Burke Flynn with AC Hotel, Pittsburgh Downtown, Nicole Manino Johnson with Literacy Pittsburgh, John McGinley with Wilson McGinley, Brandy Miller with Literacy Council of Southwestern Pennsylvania, Ashley Sanger with Language Collaborations, Anna Stark with the Westin Pittsburgh, and Tad Waymester with NGen. So welcome all of you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point so that we can have a conversation. And Matthew, if you would also close the chat, please. And folks who are in the room with us, please drop whatever questions as you're listening to the conversation, what other questions or comments you have, please use the Q&A to drop your questions there. All right, so let's talk about supporting workplace language skills and development. And we know that increasing the language proficiency of immigrant employees is a high impact focus area. Offering workplace English programs, specifically industry or job-specific trainings, helps employees improve their communication skills and allows them to interact confidently with colleagues and customers. There are also upskilling initiatives, which we'll talk about, such as digital literacy courses and professional development workshops that further enhance job performance and also employee and also customer satisfaction. So we'll spend some of this time talking with Ashley, with Brandy, and Nicole, and with Tad to start off with. So I'll start with you, Ashley. What are best practices you have seen for implementing effective workplace English programs tailored to specific industries or job roles?
So the best practices that I have seen is when I create custom courses for employers, what I do is I start out with a 12-week course, and they're choosing 3 to 4 areas to focus on for their employees. So that's typically focuses heavily on safety, on OSHA best practices, and also technical terminology for their workplace. So then they're using the English skills that we learn in their on-site classes, and they can go straight to work and start communicating with their managers and employees.
Thanks, Ashley. Nicole, I'm going to ask you that same question. What are some best practices you've seen around effective workplace English programs?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Literacy Pittsburgh does offer employee training services and also industry-aligned career bridge classes. We've noticed that, as Ashley mentioned, a contextualized curriculum. So we customize a curriculum and make it contextualized for the workplace with specific goals for the training and offered during paid work time with a combination of the employees getting trained and the supervisors receiving simultaneous cultural competency training.
Great, great. Brandy, in your experience, I'm curious, how can employers create inclusive learning environments that really encourage their their immigrant employees to participate in language and upskilling programs?
Hello. Encourage open conversations and understanding of situations. We try to develop actionable plans for increased inclusivity. Sorry, I'm having a little jolt here. We celebrate the differences and foster an inclusive organizational culture. We make sure we prioritize language support and empower participation with all members involved. Including the employer and the actual participant, provide cultural sensitivity training for all of the staff members. They have to be able to understand what is going on around them and making sure they're culturally aware. We like to celebrate history of the days and months that might be inclusive to someone's culture. So making sure it's everyone's celebrated. Develop training content that is culturally sensitive and avoid stereotypes or biases. When we encourage the open conversations and understanding, it gives us a better sense of where that person's coming from. And as was mentioned before, we develop actionable plans and we try to increase the inclusivity of all.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Brandy. So, Ted, I'm going to turn to you and ask you about how do workplace English and also upskilling initiatives impact employee retention, job performance, and overall workplace culture?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And at Engine, we are very focused on workplace literacy programming. We collaborate with Fortune 500 companies, but also small and medium-sized employers. I think it's incredibly important for those employers to recognize the value in this and recognize the ROI. Just as an example, we've been working for several years now with Chobani. And this offering workplace English programs has been a benefit that has attracted other employees, friends, and family members from the community. So it absolutely enhances their recruitment efforts. I've heard from Tyson, I've heard from Chobani, I've heard from other major employers that this has a very significant impact on their retention rates, their retention statistics. So, just retaining a worker is of such value to the employer. Also, I was at the COABE conference last week, and I got to attend a session that was being delivered by the Literacy Center of West Michigan, which really has advanced programming for workplace literacy. One of the things that they highlighted was many of the participants, many of these worker learners, actually have stronger proficiency levels than they might self-evaluate. Confidence and the confidence in the ability to use their English is a huge positive impact that allows the learner, better communication skills, opens up new advancement and training opportunities, and really has an impact across their life. So there's a huge ROI for employers, I will be sure to send you, we've got some data from our impact report, and we are currently crunching the numbers from over 6,000 respondents of how workplace English programs are benefiting, their retention, development, etc.
Mhm. Great, thanks. And I'm wondering too, Nicole or Ashley or even Brandy, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the employers you work with in the area, and a little bit, I've had some experience in this area and can certainly 100% agree with Tad around the idea that workers sometimes minimize their proficiency level and having that confidence level. But Nicole, would you like to talk a little bit about the folks that you're working with in the region?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So we've worked with numerous employers, including AHN at Jefferson Hospital, Allegheny General Hospital, Allegheny Health Network, Center for Inclusive Health. I think I might be getting that wrong. And then UPMC, the Rivers Casino, and various other employers. And as Tad mentioned, confidence definitely increases, as well as at AHN Jefferson Hospital, they actually noticed an increase in patient satisfaction scores for the individuals that participated in our programming. And I'd also like to say that the impact of these courses and this training, it not only increases confidence, but motivation. Motivation of employees, they feel invested in, they feel like they're valued. And cultural competence doesn't have to be just for international culture. It can be inclusive of all staff, and you can highlight the values of your company, and that engages everybody in being invested in the mission of their organization or company. And the skills that you're learning with cultural competence can help with all kinds of things, like, empathy. That's just a skill that everybody can use. And active listening. So these are skills that can be infused in addition to the English language.
Great, thanks for that. Ashley, how about you?
Yeah, so some of the feedback that I get from the employers that I have is that this is a great training program because there's so many available for like the manager level or higher level employees in the company. And there's very few training programs available for entry level employees, and especially employees that their first language is not English. So this is a great way to make them feel included and add an extra benefit to their employment. They also see the benefit of that when you have somebody that's upskilling in the company and getting promoted, and the other employees can see that, and that builds extra confidence in them and makes them want to take English class and keep working harder because they're able to see their peers and others that struggle with a similar issue of not being proficient in English. Now they're getting promoted in the company because they worked hard and were able to take the classes that were offered at the company.
Yeah, great. And Brandy, in your experience, what has been your experience also with employers and staff that you're working with?
We have a lot of students that come over and they're professionals in their home country, but they can't practice what they did back home because they don't have the transcripts and they don't transfer. So we try to help them from the ground up. We work with many employers to get them in the door. And then once they go and are there, they quickly move up. And that's the goal for most, to find a better life for themselves, to provide for their families. So, and everyone that we work with they're all hard workers. So all they want to do is succeed in life when they come over here, especially when they're starting over. So our employers are actually really happy because they are hard workers. All they want to do is learn. They're all just sponges. Like, how kids are just sponges. They just want to soak up all the information and just keep going. That's how a lot of our students are. And they appreciate the confidence that is building as they're working their way up. So I think everyone being culturally competent will help everybody in their own workplaces, because that's the only way you'll succeed.
Great. All right, thanks. Thank you, Brandy. Tad, I'm going to come back to you for a minute and ask you the question of what role do managers and coworkers play in supporting language development and skill building for their coworkers who may be immigrants?
Yeah, well, managers, colleagues, they play a very important role. I think this works best when there's leadership support,
Mm-hmm.
but then also manager support, that they're seeing the value in offering some paid time, that they're able to identify, potential incentives and get creative. Um, Also, how do they tie this to advancement opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
So the buy-in of managers is absolutely critical. I think also that coworkers can support, whether it's conversation practice activities, role play activities, so bring in other employees. I was again going back to that presentation I was at last week with the Literacy Center. They had a manufacturing employer that they were working with, and at the end of the program, they had a customized game of Go Fish with industry-specific terms that the learners and managers were playing together. And they just mentioned how it's probably this was probably the first time that these individuals are playing a game of this, a very, non-homogeneous group. Just seeing people laugh, seeing people interact, was really sounded like an amazing element to include. That this wasn't just for those individuals, those language learners, but was also, bringing in some interaction with employers and other managers and other colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think that you're all highlighting that this work together also is a two-way street and a way of communicating with one another, but showing that everyone is invested in this work and in the advancement of each other. I want to give either Anna or John or Burke a chance to weigh in on this at your businesses. Are you doing any type of workplace language classes, or is there, what are the things that you're doing to help and encourage your employees to advance? And I will take, whoever wants to go first, whoever unmutes first. If you'd like to grab onto that question, please do.
We don't have any literacy programs per se here, but I think it's just, an inclusive atmosphere from the entire team. It can't be just me that supports this group of people coming in from many different countries. It has to be our entire leadership team that's on board, that understands the value and the time that we put in up front will pay dividends in the end. Some of the people have been here for years. So I think it's a group effort among the leaders of whatever establishment that is to really go at this full force and accept it and embrace it and try to make people's lives better, just one day at a time.
Great. Thanks, Burke. Thank you.
I think from our end, we found that you can help with literacy by doing it within the workplace. One of the things we did was, so we distribute beverages throughout the Western Pennsylvania area, and we build orders that get sent out. And with those orders, we have handhelds that tell you basically what you have to build. And we found out that we could convert that handheld into Spanish, right? So we actually have two handhelds. One is speaking in Spanish, the other is in English. Our managers all hold their phones and they use translation devices when they need to communicate. And I think that as they do that, not only do the workers that we obtain learn English, I'm learning that the people who work them learn Spanish. So it's sort of a combination of the two. And I think, as Burke said, if you have an inclusive atmosphere, and if you have people who realize that their jobs get easier by working with other people, that common ground sort of helps foster the relationship. And you find solutions to overcome those barriers, I think.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much. And I know that we are starting to, and we've already started to hint towards it, that we're getting into that, shall we say, second basket of talking about cultural competency and inclusion, so that it's, how we encourage inclusion in the different ways that you have all highlighted here. So there's clear communication strategies. There's making sure workplace materials are useful, or having that handheld that also speaks Spanish. That is also a great way to look at it. So I'm going to stay with Burke and with John and with Anna and ask this question around what are small but impactful changes you have made in your workplace to foster a more inclusive environment for immigrant employees. And Burke and John have talked about those a little bit, so I want to give the floor to Anna now to talk a little bit about what you're doing at the West End.
Yeah, so some of the things, so a lot of our associates work off of checklists. So we've translated some of those checklists into their native language to, again, help with that, communication level, to ensure that they're doing everything that they need to get done. Which has, that made a huge difference for one of our overnight housemen. He speaks Arabic, and we have one of our security guys is fluent in Arabic and English, so was able to translate that for us, which made a huge difference, and made his performance just become so much better because he understood what we were asking of him. And obviously the overnight shift is a very hard shift. It's him and 4 other people. So that really helped our housekeeping department out a lot. So that's one of the main things that we've done, is translated a lot of our basic documents into their native language for them.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. John or Burke, was there more you wanted to add about what you're doing at your businesses?
No, but just a little thing. We have sort of a melting pot here. People from all over the world: Afghanistan, Jamaica, Colombia, Africa, the Congo, Bhutan. And one thing that all humans enjoy, I believe, is food. So bringing people together and doing sort of a potluck from wherever they're coming from, and bring their favorite dish that they like to cook. I mean, it really promotes this worldly view and trying out different things from different people. So just a potluck every quarter or so.
Sure. Why not? Yeah.
I think the only thing I would add is that, that the people that we bring in have different levels of competency in English, right? And when you find some of the refugees that you hire who speak English pretty proficiently, and you can help them be part of the solution in the communication, I think that goes a long way to include everybody. I think that it fosters a level of trust in your workforce that, the people you bring in, you care about, and at the same time, they can be part of a solution. And the refugees that we've brought in that have high English skills have really helped us bridge that barrier, or that gap, and have been a big part of the solution.
Yeah.
Allegra, can I answer the question as well?
Sure, absolutely.
So I wanted to share a couple of things that the employers that I work with do. So one of the things that language collaboration does offer is phone interpreter services. So if you're ever having an issue, and I'm kind of piggybacking off the document translation, because that's an excellent thing to do. And then if you actually need to have an HR conversation, a confidential conversation, or even something just about benefits, that's one thing to do to help to be more inclusive, because sometimes there is no Google Translate for certain terminology, especially with healthcare. But then starting small, and one of the companies I work at, they have a large world map at their company, and each employee got to put a little pin where they're coming from. So I think it was just something really small for the employers to see, and other employees that to see how diverse their company was. On top of that, I've seen potlucks, but making sure that they include food that is halal and food that is vegetarian to make sure that everybody can be included in those things. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is that I had a company do a lunch and learn with the president of a cultural center, and he was one that lived under the rule of the Taliban. And so he was able to come in and talk about that and also talk about the process of how he came to the United States. And it was a great conversation to show how, what a struggle it was to actually come into the United States, all the background checks that needed to happen. And I think it was great for the employers, the managers to hear about somebody coming into the United States and how difficult that is.
Yeah, there's a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of misconceptions. Go ahead, Ted. Yeah.
Something that's been coming up in this conversation is that workplace literacy programs have very diverse learners, so different language levels, different native languages, different shifts as well. So, sometimes the first solution is, oh, let's just do something in Spanish, which can be great for some individuals, but it leaves many others out. And that's why we at Engine really believe that digital tools can play a role to allow people from different shifts to participate, different language levels, different native languages, and provide that data while also working to enhance people's digital skills. Because it's important to develop their language skills and their digital skills because both are required for advancement and training.
Yeah,
Can I add something to this
absolutely.
thread here?
Yeah.
So I love this conversation, and we have also we incorporate both language learning and digital skills instruction into our trainings, and that's a great way to include all employees as well. And many employees can use the basic digital skills that are taken for granted. And also for a specific example of cultural competence, we did some supervisor trainings, and the supervisors expressed sometimes that they were having difficulty. These were environmental services staff that were cleaning rooms, and so they would tell them, go to room 3575 or something. They wouldn't get to the room. And so just a simple like, hey, why don't you try saying go to room 3575, really like changed lots of things for the positive. And then in addition to that, during our classes, we will gather cultural stories and celebrations from the participants. So they tell me about what traditions they're celebrating, and we'll write something up and share that with the supervisors. And through one of those activities, they realized that one of their staff people had asked off for like a really long time, but it was because they were observing a particular funeral tradition that required separation for an extended period of time. And they didn't know why they were asking for it before, but then this activity and learning about another culture and their traditions was really informative for the supervisors to know, okay, this is what they were asking. This is why they're asking off for this long.
Yeah. So I think that you're really highlighting, Nicole, how this benefits everybody in the workplace, and it benefits communication, and it's not just for your immigrant and refugee workers, because I think that that's a shall we say, a misnomer or a myth that all of this only benefits the immigrant workers. It benefits everybody at the organization, at the workplace, and also supervisors. And Brandy, I saw that you had your hand up too. I think we've lit up the chat, so to speak, on this conversation.
I just wanted to go elaborate more on what John was saying. I think it's about building trust, making sure your employees feel like they can trust somebody. At one of the places that we work with, they formed associations because there's so many different countries involved in this one workplace that they formed associations. So they actually have someone to voice their opinion on the issues that are needed, what they need, what they want to see, and stuff like that. So just having the trust there is wonderful.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And trust is built, trust is earned. It takes a while to do that, and so this takes it takes a lot of work, a lot of relational work also. Well, Leslie, I don't want to keep you out of the conversation, and I want to bring you in as we're having this very rich discussion around cultural competency. I'm wondering if you know, from the work that you do, and you can talk a little bit about the work that you do. Are there any legal considerations that employers should keep in mind when they're implementing cultural competency or inclusion initiatives? Anything that has come to your mind, but happy to hear from you on this topic too.
Right. Well, thank you. And I was enjoying listening to the conversation. So I knew you'd get to me eventually.
Yeah.
So first, I'm from Pathway for Immigrant Workers. I'm the executive director, and we're a nonprofit based in Cambridge. We provide legal services to employers so that they can sponsor their lower wage workers. And, thank you very much for inviting us to join today's call. We, of course, represent employers in our own area, but also across the country. So we welcome employers in Pittsburgh to check us out and see if we can help them. So for cultural competency and thinking about legal considerations, I'm an immigration attorney, so this is a little bit more in the employment realm, but I can give you some broad strokes about things you should consider and things to avoid. Kind of just 5 things to consider. And, I think everyone touched about this a little bit, right? You want to avoid, kind of doing any discrimination yourself, right? So you want to make sure that you're in compliance with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and that you avoid practices or trainings that stereotype or single out any particular group, based on their race or religion or national origin or gender. We're talking about programs that are inclusive, but we just want to think, we want to make sure when we're including, we're not also excluding by default. Religious and cultural accommodations. Love the idea of a potluck. I too love food. You want to make sure your potluck's not on a day that might be a religious holiday for someone else, or just, make sure that whatever kind of religious or cultural, events that you're happening or that you are promoting, that they take accommodations for, other people's, cultures. Kind of good parenting consistency. Make sure that your rules are consistent across hiring and promotion and disciplinary records. You want to make sure you're speaking with one voice. So that is sometimes when those areas are managed by different HR functions, you have to think purposely about collaborating and making sure that you are consistent. I don't think, anyone's intent is ever to, to engage in reverse discrimination, but to remember that what we're trying to do is remove barriers and expand access and not, have quotas or preferences. It's about bringing more people to the table, not excluding from the table. And then finally, and just being polite. This idea that we all can have a safe space to speak our opinion without fear of retaliation. So to have room for everyone's view is, I think, important.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie. And I'll hold there for a moment. There was a lot of good information, a lot of things that we're all thinking about. Wanted to see if panelists, if you had reactions or thoughts or things that you think about as you're doing this work based on what Leslie said, or if there's something you wanted to add. I have something in mind that I want to add, but I'd rather hear from the panelists first and see if there were something you wanted to add there.
I'll jump in. So I do a lot of hiring, and our housekeeping department is great at referrals, right? So having, bringing in their communities and, hiring and working with people that they love to work with. I always have to remind the hiring manager, the housekeeping manager, that we need to make sure that we're also interviewing other qualified applicants as well, again, to make sure that we're hiring the best housekeeper. Yes, it might ultimately be the referral, but we have to remember that we can't just interview the referral and hire them if there are other qualified applicants in the pool. So that's definitely something that a barrier that I struggle with every day, of making sure that we do make sure that it is both sides, right?
Great. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, and I know that both John and Burke and also Anna, you work with referrals here in the city for your workers. What has that experience been like? I'm sort of changing, a little bit, turning a little bit down the road, but what's the experience been like as you get referrals from the different agencies that you work with?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to JFCS and Jeff Herzog and Becky Johnson. I've known Jeff for over 10 years, and we've connected on so many different people. It's been incredible. So Jeff, if you're out there, thank you so much and appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk soon. And Leslie talked about just being polite and coming from, I'm a hotelier, so empathy and understanding people's perspectives and just being kind to your fellow human is a big part of what we do. So we relay that into our hiring process. Make it exciting on their first day. Give them a gift. Maybe we don't even speak the same language. I'll have a translator, but they can tell from my body language that I'm excited to see them. I'm happy that they're here. I know it sounds simple, but facial expressions and body language go so far. And be an example. Show them what they need to do. Don't tell them what they need to do. Show them. Be there right next to them, especially for their first week or so. Yeah.
Thank you, Burke. Yeah.
I have to piggyback off that. I love working, and I always mess up the acronym for Jewish Family Services.
Yeah,
But
it's JFCS, Jewish Family and Community
Community
Service.
Services, yeah. I mess it up every time. But I love working with them. I love that they will bring a translator to our orientation to help, foster that. Again, that's information overload, and I tell mom jokes through that whole thing. But really having someone to, help translate the paperwork and really just onboard them well with that information overload goes so far for me to know that they understand all of those legal documents that I'm having them sign and everything. So I love working with them. I love the applicants that we get from them. Just the quality of like the documents that they have in the organization that they provide. One of the staff members that we hired from them 2 years ago, their I-9 compliance documents are coming up for renewal, and I was chatting with him the other day about making sure that he brings in the new documents when he gets them in. And one of their lawyers called me the day and they're like, we need to talk about you're firing this person. I'm like, we're not firing anyone. Like, I was chatting with him about making sure I got his updated documents. I said, as soon as he got them, I know there's backlogs. And she's like, oh my God, thank God. That I'm like, I didn't mean to scare him in that aspect, but like, even though I had someone that was helping translate for him when I was talking to him, there was still like stuff lost in translation as well.
Yeah. And we know that there's heightened anxiety around paperwork and around, and around those. And today is not really the day that we're going to be talking about paperwork or around A9s, but I'm glad, around I9s, but I'm glad that you brought that up. And even that idea of this lost in translation of that, you have this person and you're continuing forward, but they have a little bit of anxiety even around their paperwork and things like that. So you're doing your best with translation and also, as Burke said, being kind and making sure that happens. So that happens, it has a good outcome for them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So thanks for highlighting that, Anna. Yeah, I want to stick a little bit with our employers and also hear, a little bit about strategies that work, success stories. John, I understand that you have folks that stay with you for a long time and then also advance within Wilson McGinley, and would love to hear about how you all do that and what works for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to end up, I don't want Jeff to get too big of a head here. He was here today. And I think the work the JFCS does really makes it easy for us to do, right? it's funny, we came out of COVID and we couldn't find people to hire. And I Googled, refugee centers in Pittsburgh, and JFCS popped up. And the next thing you know, Jeff sprouted up, and he's been a fixture at our location. And he's taught us a lot, I think. And one of the things that we haven't talked a lot about, but we talk about inclusion. I think one of the more important things that when people come here is they want to feel like they're adding value and that they have an opportunity to advance, right? And when we first started bringing some refugees in and some immigrants, so we have an area that's a breakage department, and that breakage department is exactly what it sounds like. Packages break, and we need to repack them and send them back into the market in a way that's clean. And it's sort of, I would say, the entry level position that we have, right? And the positive part about it is you learn about packages, you learn about bottles and cans, and you learn about what we do a little bit. And then from there, most of our employees in the warehouse will start there, and then they move up to what we call the pick floor. And that's actually building orders, and that deals with that handheld that we were talking about. And it's important to get the orders right, so they'll help build orders. And then once in a while, we'll have somebody. We had a young man from Cuba named Victor who came up, and he speaks probably better English than most of us. And he asked about sales, and we talked about it. We had an opening in the sales department. So Victor now is calling on Sheets and Gecko and Giant Eagle as a salesperson. So I think we're always looking for what interest does the employee have, and how do we advance their skill set to give them the idea that they can move up? Because to be honest, if you ended up in breakage the rest of your life, I think anyone would lose their mind, right? It's probably the most basic function that you can do. And there's people who are satisfied with that, but the majority of the people, I think, want to advance and understand what you do and be part of that. And that's sort of the climate that we put in. I think that the basic level place is mostly a training ground to understand what we do, and then give people the opportunity to sort of find a direction within the company if we can find it.
Mhm. Thanks for that, John. And Brooke, and also Anna, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about how, number one, how you're retaining folks. And I know that you have great retention levels, and then how some of people are also able to advance at the Westin and also at AC hotels too.
Yeah, here at the AC, it's definitely entry-level position that they come in for, housekeeping or house person taking care of the lobby. Our retention has been okay. I mean, sometimes people are looking for that extra money or extra next step, and it's just maybe not at this property. But we want to show examples of people that have grown, immigrants that have grown into leaders. So, her name is Roxana Cavalcante. She's our housekeeping manager. We're all with Concord Hospitality. I've been with them for 16 years. But Roxy has been with them for, I think, 14. And she's originally from El Salvador, didn't speak any English when she got here, started as a housekeeper, worked her way up, and now she's our housekeeping manager. And it really gives people a sense of comfort to meet her and hear her story, because it is a story of growth and advancement.
Thank you. Thanks, Brooke.
Yeah, so for us, again, a lot of our housekeepers, that's where they want to be. They're not looking to become housekeeping managers or leaders or anything but giving them the ability to train the new housekeepers. So having their inspection scores on how well their rooms meet standards goes a long way to having them, become a trainer for a new hire. And then obviously that helps us with, again, that language aspect, because a lot of our senior housekeepers have more comfortability with English, but they also speak, their native language, so they're able to, communicate with the new hires that they're bringing in from their community, train them well, and, communicate to them on a level that the new hires are very comfortable with as well.
Yeah. So hearing a lot of teamwork and the importance of teamwork and the importance of communication amongst all the teams, and that adds also to the inclusivity that you have in your workplaces. Leslie, I promise we're not going to get into an I-9 discussion. We're not going to get into specific document discussion, but I'm curious, what are some common legal barriers that immigrants face for example, in career advancement? And are there ways for employers to really proactively support their growth within the company? And then also we understand that sometimes people might grow out of that company, but you still want to be supportive to them. So would love to talk about some of those either legal barriers or legal considerations for folks.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a large question. And I think when people think of immigrant workers, they don't kind of realize the various categories that someone might be here in the United States. But if you want to attract and retain, it's good to have just a little bit of information about who's here and has work permission. So refugees are here with work permission and have an avenue to a green card because of their refugee status. But for other workers who are here, you can be here with free market work authorization with, a variety of temporary statuses like TPS or parole. Maybe you have a pending asylum application. Maybe you're a DACA recipient. Maybe you have deferred action, right? There's a whole host of, statuses or quasi statuses people can be here. And sometimes people are here for decades, with permission to work, part of our community. If you want to attract them to work in your place, or if you want them to work long term, offer them green card sponsorship. I mean, that is what our law firm does. We provide legal services to employers so that lower wage workers will have an access to a green card, just like higher wage workers. There is an employment base to a green card for engineers and scientists and all sorts of professional positions that employers pay private attorneys to do. We're a nonprofit that does that work for free or at a discount for lower wage workers. And the workers that we have worked with find that offering that benefit, advertising that for qualified candidates, they offer green card sponsorship, puts them heads and shoulders above every other employer, right? Because that's what people really want, is just stability. And the process takes years. So for these jobs that often have high turnovers, it's a really good incentive for an employee to stay for that benefit. It doesn't change in the employer-employer relationship. People still can quit, people still can be terminated. But to think if your workers are in that category to attract them to work and to retain them long term, that might be a policy. For other non-immigrant workers who are here, those are often tied to the employer. So the employer sponsored them, they got here. And that I think would be about being clear about what your policies are about sponsorship. If you don't sponsor, just to be really clear about that so people know that coming in and have that expectation, I think is helpful.
Great. Thanks, Leslie. And just for audience and the clarification, TPS is temporary protected status. They are able to work in the United States. Parolees frequently involve folks from Ukraine. Am I correct? From Ukraine or from, I don't know if it's from.
And there's a whole host of parolees now.
Yeah.
It can be a parole is a humanitarian relief that can be applied to like people coming to the southern or northern border and needing to apply for asylum. They'll be paroled in. If there's been a natural disaster, those can be paroled. Venezuelans have a specific parole program. So does, Haiti and Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua.
Yeah. Yeah, so thanks for that clarification. And then DACA is the Dreamers Act, those folks that were brought here as children. So just wanted to clarify on that. And I know that sometimes when people say, well, green card sponsorship for somebody working, for example, at my hotel, that sounds complicated, that sounds expensive. But I think what you're saying is, at least with Pathway for Immigrant Workers, there's a way to talk with that and that it won't be quite as daunting or complicated. It's still, as you said, it still takes years, but and not to put words in your mouth, but that is something that your organization helps with. So it
Yes.
can help
Please
employers.
put words in my mouth. We are happy to speak to employers. That is our mission. We think if people live here and they work here and they're already part of our community, they too should have an avenue to a green card.
Great. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. Well, as we start to transition into the 1 o'clock hour, I know we're at 12:54. I want to see if there's any questions from the audience. And I also want to ask my colleague Matthew, as you're listening in on this conversation, what are some either questions or comments that sort of popped up for you? And if you have, questions that you thought of.
We had one question that came through the Q&A here that is for Leslie. It says, on average, is there a cost and time commitment for employers to sponsor their employees for a green card? If you have any information on kind of average cost and time commitment.
Sure. For cost, we're a nonprofit, so we do this on either on a pro bono basis or a very low cost basis, depending on the employer. If you hire a private attorney, it's going to be regulated by the market, and it is thousands of dollars. So it is an expensive process, and the employer is required by law to pay the fees associated with the first step of the process, aka why we're doing it for free, so employers can get in. The process is long. It was, 2 to 3 years a year ago. We expect that to be longer now. So it's no one's quick solution, but it's a really nice long-term solution.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thanks. All right. Give our audience a chance to sort of think about what we talked about and see if there are questions that come through. So I know I've been talking about success stories and lots of positive success stories, but I also want to think about, and this is also for Burke and for John and for Anna, of what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them as you hire immigrants and refugees? I know that we've talked about language challenges, we've talked about a little bit of retention or advancement challenges, but are there other challenges that you wanted to highlight that also that you were able to overcome as you are working with these groups of people?
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. When we first started I guess we call it a program that we're doing, you're bringing a lot of people in with diverse cultures, personalities who don't speak the same language, right? And we can talk about, you get a translator on the phone, or I can call Jeff to come down here. But if you have a dispute between two employees who don't speak the same language, it can get a little bit hairy pretty quickly, right? And we did have that circumstance, and I think we were able to resolve the situation, sort of pull people aside, figure out what the problem was. And I remember saying to Jeff, I said, I just don't understand how two people who come from different countries who don't speak the same language can get in this kind of argument. And they did. And again, I think it was just patience and working our way through it that helped us understand what their conflict was, and then tried to explain each side of the conflict to the other person. Ultimately, one of the people didn't stay. I don't think it was because of that dispute, but I would say that would probably be at the top of the list as far as when you're in a manufacturing role or a supplier role, or in a blue collar role like we are, and you have a dispute, because then your other employees are watching this thing too, right? And they're saying, are you keeping us safe as well? And it can really spin out of control if you don't handle it properly, I think.
Thanks. Appreciate you sharing that, John. Thank you. Yeah. And Burke or Anna, and then Ashley, I'm going to come over to you in a moment, because I, also talking about manufacturing and what John was talking about, but Burke or Anna wanted to know if there were, challenges that you've had and that you've also, risen above.
I just think retention is not easy. People think it is not. So the more we can do to create a positive work environment and positive work environment for all people, the better the retention ends up. But I love hearing some of the things that Leslie brought to the table. I mean, I can see people's eyes lighting up with that green card, and if it's not too much of a cost and could take a couple years, I think it's totally worth it. But retention, I would say, is the hardest part. But that's not just with immigrants, that's with any entry level position. It's just hard to keep people, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Yeah. I think, go ahead, Ina.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off, Burke in terms of, the retention. I mean, he and I know how cyclical our businesses in terms of when it comes to winter and we slow down and people aren't traveling for work because it's the holidays, and we've hired all of these people that we need during our busy season, and they don't understand, when it's slow for us, they don't have the hours and we don't have the hours to give them. So of course they go and find another job, or they leave. And even trying to highlight, using their vacation time, to take this time, away from work and use it then, it's hard to, keep them at that level of, we still want you here and we still need you here, but, we don't see them for, 4 weeks or anything. So bridging that level of, aspect of, we still want to see you, but we just don't have the hours is hard as well.
Yeah, yeah. So conveying that, I think, is difficult.
Yeah.
We want you to stay, but we don't have work for you right now. Sometimes I don't think computes for some people.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to use my vacation time right now. But then you're quite possibly losing that worker permanently, which is right. You're trying to stave off. There's some really good questions in the Q&A, but I just wanted to actually move over to you. That I also know up in Erie, PA, you're working with different manufacturing companies, and I'm wondering if some of what John is saying is resonating, if you're seeing some of that also with folks that you work with.
Yeah, so some challenge that I see is when we start getting into middle management, the middle managers that have never worked with English language learners before, because what's happening is those that are overseeing entry level workers are used to and find a way to communicate with them. But then as they're getting promoted in the company, it gets a little bit harder for the middle managers because they just don't have that experience. So what I've done for my company is providing education to the middle level managers. So then they can see and know, like, not to speak in acronyms or not to use different phrases or things that we say in Pittsburgh or Erie, because that's not what they're thinking of. So like somebody told one of the gentlemen I work with, "Are you all caught up?" Well, to him, caught is the past tense of catch. So he has no idea. And he just shook his head, yes, but I knew he didn't know what he was talking about. And then later confirmed he did not know what that meant. So I think just teaching and providing education to them is really helpful and can overcome some challenges and frustrations for both sides.
Nicole, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with like training services for employees is C-suite buy-in. And so having buy-in from the leadership is really important so that managers can continue to utilize services and have a funding source that's sustainable. And understanding the return on investment is important for that. So that's something that we've noticed. The more buy-in you have from the top, then that supports the managers who are on the ground, and the managers are really what drives the employee engagement process. So one of the challenges.
Thanks for that, Nicole. And I'm gonna turn that over to Tad. What do you in terms of when you're talking with, how do you get that buy-in from the top down when you're talking about the work you do with NGen or working with employers?
Yeah, I mean, definitely speak to those pain points. We do have, I mean, I put it in the chat. We have a lot of data in our impact report, and we use that to share that this is, a quantifiable value, return on investment. I wanted to also mention that there are literacy and, basic educational needs, not only with newcomers, but also with native born individuals. So to focus on the need across across their frontline workers. I also think, trying to think about those next steps and what are positions that are harder to fill. We've had a lot of success working with the hospital system in Maine because they do have thousands of positions that are open for some of those credentialed, allied healthcare positions. And so they have actively partnered with adult education to try to upskill from within. They've got folks who are coming in to work every day, but they're not yet ready to take on those roles or to take on those credentials. Sometimes they do have to have a certain CASA score in order to be eligible for the incumbent worker, the workforce development fund that the hospital already has. So trying to help them to understand that pipeline, that pathway for their low English, their limited English workforce to get into some of those jobs. So really help them to understand that path. Also, getting started in, maybe an apprenticeship program isn't the first step, but earn and learn opportunities that are a little bit more low stakes might be an area to experiment with.
Great. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for bringing that up.
Could I add one thing about
Sure.
funding? Just because Nicole brought that up, and that's something that comes up so much. So something that the employees or the employers that I've worked with, they utilize WEDNet funding. So that's something that is the state of Pennsylvania gives out training funds for training programs. So WEDNet is something that employers can use for companies that are able to do that. So it's an important thing for employers to check out this funding, and things like English classes in the workplace are eligible for that.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Brandy, I want to come back to you because you are the executive director of a literacy council. And I know that we are talking about immigrants and refugees, but we're also talking about literacy, and we're talking about folks who are born in the United States. And we know there's a wide variety of literacy levels that also affects people's advancement at work. And I wonder, if you're comfortable, you can talk also about the services that the Literacy Council does with everyone, and how literacy, I think we all make assumptions about people's literacy, and that affects them at work, and people are just assuming that everybody has high literacy rates if they're born in this country. And I would say, in my experience, that's not always true. So I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit, if you feel comfortable speaking to that a little bit, Brandy.
Sure. So we have many different levels, as you know, in our English as a second language program. We have levels from 0 speaking to all the way to 6. We also provide free GED classes. So it depends on where you're at. We cover 4 counties. So in the 4 counties, we've experienced exponential growth in our English as a second language classes. We've actually grown 311% since 2020. So we need to provide more free services. With that, and with our adult basic education classes, with our general fluency classes, we generally have a pass rate about 87%. And with our English language learners, a lot of them are professionals, but there's a ton of barriers when they come over. So their English skills aren't acceptable and aren't up to standards with everything that they need to have provided for a certain job they might have. So they have to build up those skills. A lot of our students actually come over with many goals in life, whether it's getting a job or getting a basic job or getting a better job. Anywhere from green cards, anywhere from citizenship, anywhere from trying to talk to the doctor for their children so they're able to understand and learn on what their child needs. So a lot of the goal setting is very important to our tutors, to our teachers, and to the students and families that we provide services to. When we talk to the employer, we set a clear and decisive goal plan. So whatever they're looking for, and then we try to match them up to what our students are looking for, and where they're at in their life, especially with their English language learning barriers. we have a very, very good partnership with our local colleges. So if they need to get if their credits don't transfer and they need to work and provide a better education. So we try to hook them up with the colleges and universities. A lot of our workforce, they're very flexible in allowing them, if they can't provide the English language courses on site, especially some of the manufacturers, because it's very loud and they don't have a quiet place for them to learn. They will let them, we actually have classes all around our counties that we're able to provide transportation to go to some of our classes, which is very, very key, because the only way they can advance is if they can, obviously learn English. So we try to work with the employer as much as we can, especially with the goal setting. People have to realize, especially with the manufacturers and with all of the workforce development, that it does take time. They can't learn English overnight. So we try to make sure that everyone's committed, obviously in providing, everything they can, especially to keep their retention in the workplace. And we also have to ask the workforce to be patient. So.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brandy. I'm going to take a moment and take a look in our Q&A and see if we've answered the questions. Okay, so thanks, Nicole. I just wanted to take a moment. There was a question about our ESL, our language learning programs, typically funded through public grants. Employer contributions are another model, and Nicole was able to answer that. They're funded through a combination of government grants, private foundations, individual contributions. And then importantly, the employee training for services are offered as a fee for service. So the work that Literacy Pittsburgh does, the work that Southwestern Pennsylvania Literacy Council does. There are different funding models there, but then when we're talking about specific classes on site, that can be also fee for service. Michelle, I'm going to put you on the spot because there's also a question in here. For those familiar with city initiatives, do you know which office or department is coordinating or championing this work? And that's OIRA, that's HR, that's workforce. But wanted to give you a moment to talk about how Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs also champions this work. So
great, thank you for that. So I will say I know some other cities have departments that will give funding to this. We don't have that set up here in Pittsburgh, so we aren't directly giving financial assistance to, we're not giving those grants to Literacy Pittsburgh or anyone, but we do partner with stakeholders throughout the Pittsburgh metro area and pull them together so we can connect employers and connect others to those resources, some that you're seeing on the panel today and some others, but we don't offer direct services for that.
Okay. Yeah. But you're in partnership and in concert with Literacy Pittsburgh also, and having and part of this, what we're doing today was a partnership of all of us to keep the conversation going and make sure that folks know about these opportunities too.
Yeah, we're that connector and
Yeah.
convener, but not the
Right.
provider. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And we are too. So we're glad to be all connected here. Great. So appreciate that question there, and appreciate folks who are hanging on with us. We are scheduled till 1:30. So what I'd like to do, as folks are thinking about their questions, I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to speak a little bit more about your organization, who you are, and sort of a reiteration of what you do, because we are at almost 1:15. I know that we might have some other questions or comments coming through. But I'm just going to go through and shall we say spotlight each of you and give you a moment to talk about your organization, talk about the work you do, or talk about something that has sparked for you in this conversation today. So I'll hold for about 10 seconds, as because this was not on our prep list, but I'll hold for about 10 seconds as you have a chance to think about that, and then I'm going to take a moment also to spotlight our panelists for everyone, so that you can, see them specifically instead of me. So I'll give you, as I do that, gonna give you all a chance to think about what you'd like to say about the work that you do, about your organization, and what has sparked for you today. So.
And to add in, not to make your answers overly robust here as we're closing out, but I do think as the title for today's session being strategies for success, a lot of really great strategies for upskilling, for retention have been hit on by you all through what you offer, through experiences. And as we're thinking about these strategies, maybe highlighting some short-term strategies and long-term, so things people may be able to enact a little bit earlier and sooner versus strategies that you've seen organizations or you've offered organizations that might be more in that long-term approach. I know we've hit on that a little bit, but just trying to think of it logistically in that manner as well.
Thanks, Matthew. That's great. All right. So, Nicole, how about you? Are you ready to go?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. From Literacy Pittsburgh, and we are one of the largest adult education providers in the state of Pennsylvania. We offer not only English as a second language, but also GED prep, digital literacy, and workforce development preparation. We have career bridge classes, including Microsoft Office specialist training. Upcoming, we'll have some certified bookkeeping training coming up. We work with employers not only inside the workplace, but also UPMC Pathways to Work program sponsors a class called English for Job Seekers, where we're helping our highly skilled immigrants find meaningful work in the United States. We partner with Upwardly Global, which is a national organization that aims to also assist the highly skilled immigrants to find meaningful work here. As far as strategies, I think the cultural competency for supervisors is a really great first step. It can really help. Ashley touched on this as well, like how to speak and monitor your speech when you're, and this will not only help immigrants, but it's also just clear communication that benefits anybody that's listening. So if you think of a universal design perspective, it helps everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Ashley.
Okay, so my name is Ashley Senger. I founded Language Collaborations about 7 years ago. I've expanded throughout Western Pennsylvania, so I have the capability to work in the Erie region the whole way down to Allegheny County. During my expansion, I now have several employees, and I also do document translation as well as on-demand phone and video services as well. So if you ever have any issues that need the HR issues or anything that may come about, it's a real quick service that you're able to instantly get an interpreter for your employees as well. So throughout this time that I've been doing this work, I would say something short term. If you do not live in Allegheny County or somewhere that would have a place to go to actually like find different employees, I would say try out different cultural centers, put job descriptions in a different first language. So if you are interested in hiring Spanish speakers, create the job description in Spanish. Or if you already have a large Arabic population, you can create that job description already in their first language. So then it's a lot easier for them to access that information. Long term, we talked a lot about training for managers. I do also training for the employees, so then they're promoted within their company. So I have an individual that he's been promoted 3 times, and each time the classes are specific to his new position. And that's been very successful. That's at several different companies that we've had the ability to promote different workers, and it's been positive all around.
Ben.
Yes. Well, great discussion today. For those of you who don't know, Engine is a platform for contextualized ESL. It's often used within upskilling initiatives, whether that be, creating some content for pre-apprenticeship, content for workplace literacy. And that's where we can deliver a lot of value to partners, is because we have content around OSHA safety or green energy or healthcare. So that will allow a partner who's working directly with that employer, you can create some custom content for that employer, that use case, but not recreating the wheel, and using some of that, whether it's healthcare or manufacturing content that we can put to use. I think in the short term, it's getting started and finding those employers who have pain points where your services, your supports can really help them to retain and develop their employees. Over the long term, I'd say where I see this working really well is where there is a partnership between adult ed and literacy centers, but there's also the engagement of the local chamber, that they see the value in this and are promoting this to their membership, as well as partnerships with workforce development. There may be training funds at the state or local level that can help to, supplement and pay for this work. However, I do think that it's very important that employers have some skin in the game, and they sometimes don't value something that's free as much as something that they pay for. So again, help them to understand the ROI. There can be valuable funding resources to pull in, but also have them contribute, whether it's in, paid time to do this, whether it's engaging managers and other employees in the process, as well as, compensating the valuable services that they get from a literacy council or an adult ed provider.
Yeah, thanks for that call out, Tad, because services at Literacy Pittsburgh and services at the Literacy Council of Southwestern Pennsylvania, if folks go to a Literacy Pittsburgh or a Literacy Council, those are free services and free classes. But we find, or anecdotally, that given people's work schedules, that can be very, very difficult for that to happen. And I think it was back to perhaps it was Brandy's comment of, you can't learn another language overnight, and you have to have the time to be able to do that. So exactly, having the employer get some skin in the game too for that learning piece is important. So Brandy, I'll turn it over to you since I referenced you. I'll turn it to you.
Perfect. Hello. I'm the executive director of the Literacy Council of Southwestern PA. We're the counterpart to Literacy Pittsburgh, so we cover 4 rural counties in the Southwestern corridor. We have free classes for English as a second language, high school equivalency. We do adult basic education. With some of the strategies that I suggest, I want to highly emphasize to build the trust. If you build the trust with your workers, more people will come. We are a very word of mouth type of nonprofit agency. Once you build that trust, people will come. Be more inclusive, make sure you're aware of your surroundings. It's a very different world out there right now. So learn to be more understanding, learn to accept all aspects of one person's life. Train and engage supervisors. I know many of you said that on the call today, but they need to be aware of everything that's going on around them, especially at the workplace. And I also wanted to make a plug-in for your local workforce boards. I can't emphasize enough how much they're willing to help, how much grant money is available to help train. Sometimes they'll be able to do paid trainings for you. So work with your local workforce boards and also have great partnerships. I know agencies can't do this alone, especially in the rural areas that we are at. So partnerships are key for us. So make sure you have that in your back pocket.
Thanks, Brandy. So before I'm going to end with our employers, but I'm going to move over to Leslie and let you put in a plug and also answer Matthew's questions.
Right. Well, I think I plugged myself already. Pathway for Immigrant Workers, we provide pro bono and low-cost legal services to employers so they can sponsor their lower wage workers. Because the times are changing, we are offering additional services, helping employees understand other immigrant options and extending with work authorization and with employers, doing some wraparound with trainings and I-9 compliance. We're just trying to, stay relevant in a changing landscape. But just a story about one of our first employers we collaborated with. It was a retirement community north of Boston. And they leaned into our services. They thought it was a great model. So they started advertising that for qualified workers, they offer green card sponsorship. And they started in the 80s, and they said since they opened the doors, they've had a shortage of CNAs. And after they started this partnership, they now have a wait list of people who want to work for them. So I think if we understand what our workers need and can offer that benefit, it's a win-win.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Leslie. Anna, I'll go to you, and we'll Anna and then John and then Burke, please.
Yeah, so I work at the Westin Pittsburgh, so we are a hotel. So we help everybody in the aspect of, hosting events, and then obviously people as they travel. I don't really know what to say other than that. I mean, our communities that we support in terms of our immigrants really are in our housekeeping and our stewarding department positions that people don't really necessarily think about all the time, but really are integral parts of, having a guest stay with us is, without a clean room, we can't host guests. So that's really
And I think you brought up a good point, Anna, earlier on, is that you are, as you're taking referrals of immigrants and refugees, you're also looking across the board of all of your applicants and being very intentional and very clear-minded as you hire people. And so you're thinking about all of your employees also at the Westin. So thanks for that too. Yeah. John.
Yeah, my name is John McGinley. I'm at Wilson McGinley. We're a beer wholesaler mainly. We distribute other beverages throughout Western Pennsylvania. I think I learned we're on the right track, but we have a lot more to sort of develop here with the program that we have. It's pretty simple. I remember, like I said, I called Jeff for the first time. I actually cold called him. We met and he said, I think we can help each other here. And I think that sort of sums up the attitude that we talked about. It's we need workers who want to work and want to get a job done. And at the same time, we have an obligation to the people we bring in our opinion, to have a future, right? And I think if we have that in mind, I think Jeff's right. We can help each other. It works sort of hand in hand. And for us, this program's work. I think it'll continue to work. And I think our people have bought in. And I think that the discussion around, the employees you bring in need to have trust in the process is probably the most important part.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. Burke.
Hey, Burke Flynn. I'm from the AC Hotel, Pittsburgh downtown. We are with Concord Hospitality. We manage about 150 hotels in the US and Canada, 7,500 total associates. I just want to say thank you to the panel. I think I've learned a lot, and I think this is kind of what it's all about, is connecting people from different avenues. I've been a supporter of this concept for years, like we talked about Jeff from JFCS. Thank you, Jeff. But when we hire somebody, I encourage them to learn English, but I don't know where to go. So even just this panel right now today, I've got 3-4 different options of where I can send people. And if they see it from me and they get this referral from me, I think it's going to be so much more beneficial. And, long term, might have a way for you to get a green card. I don't know, we never know. So I just appreciate fellow panelists and, of course, Allegra and Matt for putting this all together. It's just important to connect people on this topic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Burke, and thank you to all of our panelists. And Michelle, wanted to give you also a chance to add in based on everything you've heard today and based on also the work that you do in the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs as we start to close out. Believe it or not, it's time to close out our program today. But wanted to give you, one of the last words. Of course, I'll have a couple last words, but wanted to give you the last word about our program today and also the work that you're doing with the mayor's office. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you again to all the panelists for being here. I know that this is, just a brief start in the conversation. And to Burke's point, like there are a bunch of resources out there, and these are just some of them. So, please view our office if you're in the Pittsburgh area as, we exist. Our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs looks to cultivate the conditions that make Pittsburgh attractive for immigrants to come and build their lives and stay. So, if there are other resources that you're looking for, other things that you're offering, we're always happy to connect. I know we've gotten to highlight JFCS today and all of their incredible work, but we also have other immigrant serving organizations that we're happy to connect you with as well. And yeah, please, I look forward to this conversation continuing. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And that's an important point also to remember that there are other immigrant serving organizations in the region. And so please reach out, for information about that. And we will, and I wanted to just put this slide up again so that you see the names of all of our panelists. You see, where they're from and the companies and the work that they do and how, we can think about supporting them also and to say thank you to them. We will be sending out to all registrants today's recording, resources that all of our panelists have also provided for us so that you will have that. And, really encourage you to stay in touch with us, with Vibrant Pittsburgh. You can be in touch with us throughout all of our social media channels, excuse me. And also we'll be happy to share the websites of all of our panelists. And Nicole, I think I saw your hand go up.
Sorry.
No, okay. Okay, no problem. No problem. But yeah, we'll definitely provide you with all of those resources. So with that, it is 1:30. I want to thank our panelists for a very lively discussion, very interesting discussion. There's always so much more to think about and to do together. But please look for that email with all of your resources. Please stay in touch with Vibrant Pittsburgh, stay in touch with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs and also with all of our panelists too. So thank you, everyone. I wish you a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thank you.